Welcome back to Global Lens on News9 Live. Well, in a significant development, India in recent months has barred domestic manufacturers of military drones from using components made in China over concerns about security vulnerabilities. This has been reported by global news agency Reuters today, quoting some of India's defense and industry officials and documents. The measure comes amid tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors India and China, and as New Delhi pursues a military modernization that envisages greater use of unmanned quadcopters, long-endurance systems and other autonomous platforms. But as the nascent Indian industry looks to meet the military's needs, security leaders are worried that intelligence gathering could be compromised by Chinese-made parts in drones' communication functions, cameras, radio transmission and operating software. India's approach complements phased import restrictions on surveillance drones since 2020 and is being implemented through military tenders. According to Reuters, at two meetings in February and March to discuss drone tenders, Indian military officials told potential bidders that equipment or subcomponents from countries sharing land borders with India will not be acceptable for security reasons. One tender document said such subsystems had security loopholes that compromised critical military data and called for vendors to disclose components' origin. A senior defense official has been quoted as saying that the reference to neighboring countries was a euphemism for China and that the Indian industry had become dependent on the world's second largest economy despite concern about cyber attacks. Beijing has always denied its involvement in cyber attacks. China's Commerce Ministry, which last week announced export controls on some drones and drone-related equipment, hasn't responded to questions about India's measures. And it's not just India. The US Congress in 2019 banned the Pentagon from buying or using drones and components made in China. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has sought to build India's drone capability to thwart perceived threats, including from China, whose forces have clashed with Indian forces along the disputed border in recent years. India has set aside 1.6 trillion rupees, that's $19.77 billion, for military modernization in 2023-24, of which 75% is reserved for domestic industry. But the ban on Chinese parts has raised the cost of making military drones locally by forcing manufacturers to source components elsewhere. 70% of goods in India's supply chain were made in China. India relies on foreign manufacturers for both parts and entire systems as it lacks the know-how to make certain types of drones. A government-funded program to produce an indigenous medium-altitude, long-endurance unmanned system called Tapas has been delayed by at least half a decade. It has met most requirements but needs further work to fulfill the military's goal of a drone that can reach an operational altitude of 30,000 feet and remain airborne for 24 hours. Apart from Tapas, which is expected to begin military trials later this month, work is also underway on a stealth unmanned platform and a high-altitude long-endurance platform, but both are years away. To fill these gaps, India announced in June, during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to the US, that it would buy 31 MQ-9 drones from the United States for over $3 billion. In February, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman pledged that one quarter of this year's $2.83 billion budget for defense research and development would be for private industry. Indian Defence Forces are set to acquire 97 made-in-India drones for surveillance purposes along China and Pakistan borders. After the decision to buy 31 Predator drones from the US, India is now moving towards acquiring 97 highly capable drones made under the Make in India project. The drones to be acquired by the forces would be in addition to the existing fleet of over 46 Heron UAVs acquired by the three forces over the years in their respective fleets. The drones, which are already in service, are going to be upgraded by the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited in partnership with the original equipment manufacturers through the Make in India route, where they will have to upgrade their capabilities within the country using over 60% Indian content.